All right. Okay. All right. Okay, chapter 5, web design. So some of the things we're going to talk about are, we're going to talk about the most common ways to organize your website. All right, we'll talk about some visual design principles, target audience, which is important for your website, navigation, right, how to set up some good navigation, a little bit on readability for the as far as the text and type on your web page, using graphics, universal design, okay, and then we'll also talk about some layout design techniques and best practices for those. All right. So one of the most important things when we're working on web projects and working on web page design is to think about the target audience for that site, okay? When you start working on your final project, your final web page project here in a few weeks, this will be something that you'll think about and have to figure out for your site that you'll be doing, because the intended target audience is going to really affect how the overall design of the site works. Okay, it's and also kind of the purpose of your website as well. If it's going to be something where it's, you know, just very informational, lots of resources, maybe text tutorials, things like that, you're probably going to want to design that in a way that's easy to read and easy to find information. You're probably not going to include a lot of graphics, because really the graphics don't really have any purpose unless it's like screenshots of something related to whatever it is you have in the text. Okay, so like the example here on the one on the right and the bottom would be more of like a resource type of a web page versus the other one there where it's more of you're trying to sell something. Okay. Think of like, you know, some e-commerce type of site where you're really trying to engage the audience and the viewer, trying to get them to show some interest in what it is your site is about. Okay, so you might include more graphics, more photos, bolder colors. That might be something you work with. Okay. And also the age of the audience as well. Is it going to be something geared towards, you know, older people, retired seniors, or is it going to be something that's for, you know, teenagers, right? So those are going to look different with the types of colors you use, the font choices, those different things. All right, so the website organization. All right, so there's some different ways that we can organize our website. Second, okay. There's hierarchical, linear, and random. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So this is what we would call a sitemap, right? So that bottom diagram you see there. Basically what we're doing here is we're mapping out all the pages on our site, okay? So hierarchical organization, we have a clearly defined home page, right? From there we have kind of just a few major navigation links that go to kind of our main important sections on the site. And then from there, then we break off into other pages that really, the content is related to those main sections, right? So this is used on a lot of corporate, commercial sites. Even think about K-State's site. It's organized pretty much like this because we have a lot of main sections like academics, student life, those type of things. And then within those sections, then we have subsections and pages within there, okay? So another kind of way to think about, there's a few other ways to do this with the hierarchical. There's a shallow site where you kind of run into some trouble when your site is organized too shallow. Like if you think about the diagram there, if you're on the home page and you have 10 or 12 different buttons in your navigation, sometimes that's becomes too confusing. People, when they're looking at it, they don't see what they're looking for right away because there's too many choices. Okay, so that would be something to kind of be aware of. Sometimes this might be appropriate, but most of the time you want to really think before you employ a organization like this. The better option would be to probably try and group some of those main sections there into one section and then have sub pages from that. On the flip side, you could have something that's way too deep. Okay, so you'd have maybe four main sections off of your home page, but then if you look like on the right there, it's almost becoming like a maze, right? So there's way too many links. If somebody was trying to get to the information there at the very bottom, let's see, how many links would they have to do? They would do 1 there at the top, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, they have to click through 6 different pages to get to the information that they want. Right, so that's way too many clicks. Usually we try to narrow it down to like a maximum of 3 clicks within a site. All right, so if you can stay around 3, maybe 4 at the most, that's what you want to aim for. You don't want the information to be buried so far down that it takes the user that many clicks to get to it. All right, linear organization. This is great for if you're doing a page where it's maybe more of a tutorial or a tour or some kind of presentation. Okay, so where it has to rely on a sequence. Right, so you start at the first page there, and then you click to the next one. Then you go like step 3, and so on. Okay, so it's if you're doing something like that, as far as a presentation or a tutorial, this would be a great way to organize it. This one, I would say probably don't ever use. Random organization. Okay, this maybe it would be okay if you were doing some kind of a artistic concept type of a site where it's presented as more of a piece of art, where you have kind of just random clicks. There's really no sequence or organization. It's kind of set up, I guess, as like a spider web is what they're trying to say here in the book. Not typically used for commercial sites. Okay, so probably wouldn't use this very often. All right, let's talk about some design principles here with web design. One thing you want to do is try to repeat your visual elements throughout all the different pages in the site. Okay, so if you have certain header photos or footer graphics, things like that, maybe different colors that you're using for the footer or the nav, things like that, you'll want to repeat that throughout the site and it kind of just lets people know that they're in that site. It keeps them, I guess, feeling a little bit safe because they know they're not jumping around to different pages or just different sites. Okay, and it's easy for them to navigate if you keep those elements consistent. Another one is contrast. Okay, so like if you see the header there on this page, they're using like that really light yellow to kind of contrast on the dark green and dark browns there. Okay, so and then again up there in the top right where the nav is, you have some good contrast there between the text and the background. All right, so that's always a good thing to practice and try to get a good, nice contrast. Group related elements and items together. Okay, so for example, on this one, we have our reservation section there. Okay, so we've grouped in the little date selector, as well as the number of guests, and then that search button. Those are all put together. You wouldn't want to have those spread out in different parts of the page. Okay, and then alignment. You want to align your elements, right? So for this one in the middle section, we're using a left align for all of that text and the headers. Okay, so it just keeps a nice consistent visual. If you had some of it centered, some of it left aligned, some of it right aligned, it would start to look kind of wacky. You want to keep some consistency there. All right, so again, we're going to talk about accessibility, right? We want all of our web pages to be accessible to anyone, regardless of any kind of disability they have, or any kind of device that they might be using, right? So we want somebody that maybe has a phone or an older computer to be able to access that information as well as anybody with the latest and greatest technology. Okay, so we have to think about that when we're saving like images for the web and all that. We want to try to make those file sizes as low as we can, but yet still have a sense of quality. Okay, so it's just kind of a balancing act there. All right, so again, this 4 principles, they call it POUR, P-O-U-R. Perceivable, content should be perceivable, operable. Okay, your components and your interface need to be able to operate properly, understandable, right? We want our navigation, controls, and all of that to be useful and understandable, and robust. Okay, we want it to be able to work with different assistive technologies like screen readers and things like that. Okay, just a little quick thing here on writing for the web. Okay, so all of you are have taken English classes or in English. A lot of you will probably take tech writing with different computer, and actually I think all the degrees in our college take tech writing, which is good because for the web you want to avoid long blocks of text. Okay, you don't want super long paragraphs because you want the information you want that information to come across quickly and succinctly. So use of bullet points is always good. Use those headers and subheaders to break the content into different sections, right? And like I said, don't use super long paragraphs. Try to use short paragraphs to divide your content up on the page. As far as the text, we want that to be easy to read. Okay, so we'd want to use more common fonts like Arial, Helvetica, Verdana, Times New Roman, Georgia would be another one. Okay, we don't want to use things like, Comic Sans or, crazy fonts like that. We want that text to be readable. And so most of the time when you look at books and things like that, magazines, they're using fonts like this, like Arial and Helvetica or Times New Roman. We want the text to be readable. Okay, so those are just some suggested standards there. So remember when we're in our style sheets and the CSS, we can set that text size. Okay. The contrast between the text color and the background color, we've talked about that. We want it to be readable. We don't want like yellow text on a orange background or something crazy like that. And then the use of columns. Okay, we can use multiple columns in our page design to kind of break that information up and make it more readable. Things to avoid with links, hyperlinks. We don't want to use phrases like click here, okay? If we have somebody that's using a screen reader and they come across that and it says click here, they won't know what they're clicking to, right? So we want to use keywords or phrases instead of things like that. Excuse me. And then spelling and grammar. Make sure, check all that. All right, color theory. So color is important in web design and really any kind of design. So I'm going to go over some basic principles here and terminology and technique. So if we think about our color wheel, right, we have our primary colors, okay? You know, like yellow and red and blue. We have our secondary colors like green, orange, purple, okay? And then tertiary colors, which are kind of just the those next shades of green and blue and purple and red, orange, right? So when we're talking about color schemes based on the color wheel, we can do what we would call a monochromatic color scheme, where we have kind of one color and then we have different shades and tints and tones of that color. All right. We have analogous. That's where you have a main color and then the two colors that are adjacent to it on the color wheel. Okay, so like if you had a kind of yellow color there, and then you have the red and kind of, or the two shades of orange, right? Complementary, that's when you have two colors that are opposite of each other on the color wheel. Okay, so like this one's the purple and yellow, right? So if we look at the color wheel, that yellow, the purple is directly opposite of it. Okay, so that would be a complementary color. A split complementary, that's where you have, so then you have like your yellow and your purple, and then the two colors that are adjacent to the complementary color. Okay, so let's look at the color wheel again. All right, we have the yellow, and then we go opposite is the purple, and then we have those two colors that are on each side of the purple. Okay, so that would be our split complementary. Triadic, those are just three colors that are equally distanced from each other on the color wheel. And the tetradic, those are two complementary color pairs, right? So again, equally distanced from each other, opposite way across from the wheel. All right, so when we're implementing this color scheme, you always, on a website, on a web page, you always want to have one color that's kind of the dominant color, right? And then you using those other colors kind of more as accent colors within like your headings, your subheads, your borders, things like that. You'll always want to try to use some neutrals like a white or cream color, off-white, grays. Okay, so those are great for text. You know, if you have a dark background, using white or off-white is good. If you have a, you know, a really light background, that kind of dark gray or blacks for text, those are good to use. So you don't have to really restrict yourself anymore to the web safe colors. Because again, most devices, you know, 90-some% of them that people are using are going to be able to handle more than just those couple hundred web safe colors. All right, and I think I showed this to you guys a few weeks ago. Those websites where you can check the contrast of your color choices, okay? And it gives you like the green, you know, if you're good, or gives you a red error if your contrast is too bad. All right, so again, those links will be in the PDFs that I upload with this presentation. Same here, we've got some color scheme resources. All right, let me click on this one, show you guys. I use this one quite a bit. close that. All right, so like this one here with the Adobe Color, over here you can choose what kind of scheme you want, right? So if I do a, let's just do a triad. You can move these wheels around, right? Remember with triad, we're getting 3 colors that are equal distance. And then you can do different tints and shades by kind of moving those around. So if I got something like this, then it's the cool thing is it gives you the hexadecimal values right there that you can copy and paste into your code. It also gives you the RGB values, and then down here as well as the tints. Okay. All right. So that's a cool site. I use this one quite a bit. You can, if you have like an Adobe account, you can save different color schemes, different palettes to the cloud and use them later on. Did you guys see that, or I'm not sure if that even showed up? Because I think, hold on a second. Did you guys see that Adobe thing that I pulled up? You just chat or somebody tell me. Okay, all right. That's what I thought. I think I was only sharing my PowerPoint screen, not my whole desktop. Give me a second here. All right. All right, let's try this again. Should be able to see it now. Should be able to see my browser. Okay, because it's a pretty cool site. And there's other ones that are like this. I just wanted to show you guys how this works. So like if I wanted triad color scheme like I was talking about, I can move this color wheel around and get different shades and saturations of these different colors, right? So with triad, you're doing 3 equal colors. Okay, so if I went with, I don't know, this scheme here, then down here, it gives you the hexadecimal values for all those colors that you can copy and paste into your code, and also the RGB values as well. Okay, and then if you change one of these down here, you'll notice that it changes the values on all the rest of them. Okay, and then you can, like I said, you can save that to the cloud if you have an Adobe account, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's go back to PowerPoint now. All right, again, there's some other sites there. Again, these will be in the PDF that I upload into Canvas, so you guys can use those. All right, so going back to target audience and color. So this, right, this comes into play. You know, if we're doing something like here, upper left, this would be for more of like elementary aged kids. Okay, so we're using really bright colors, primary colors. We're using some kind of different choices of fonts, right? Versus the one over here on the right, where this is like a photography portfolio for a photographer. Okay, so it's more business-like, professional looking. We're using serif fonts. Down here on the left bottom, okay, we're probably targeting more teenagers, okay, something maybe related to more video games, okay, so our color choices are probably gonna be a little different. I like this as senior moments. Okay, so if we're targeting like older adults, we wanna have really bright or contrast, really good contrast in our colors, okay, so it's easier for them to read. The size of our text is probably going to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so that was all depending on our target audience for our site. When we're using our graphics, the size and dimensions of those. We have to make sure we're using the right dimensions, the right file sizes. Okay, we don't want to have huge files that we're trying to get people to download. Okay, so we want to make sure that those photos are optimized for the web. Another thing, anti-aliasing for our text if we're using text in the graphics. Okay, so I'll show you that here in a second. That 60K is kind of the recommended size for a large graphic. That could be larger. A lot of people are getting faster internet connections. So I would say if it's under 1 megabyte, you're probably okay. Again, make sure you include the alt text with any image. All right. Okay, so here's the anti-aliasing. All right, so this is something if you're using text in one of your graphics or images on your site. Okay, so say you're creating this in Photoshop or GIMP or something. There is an option when you're creating that text to turn on the anti-aliasing. Okay, so what that's going to do is it's going to add some extra pixels around the curves of these letters, so it doesn't look so jaggedy. Okay, so you like see there on the bottom the A and the S and the E and the D has those really jagged edges. When you anti-alias, it's going to fill in some of those empty spaces with some other pixels, like a darker and lighter grays, just so it gives it a more smooth, round appearance. All right. Reuse images if you can. So if you're using a logo on your site, you place that same file on multiple pages. Don't have a separate logo file for every single page. You know, don't go too crazy with a bunch of images. Really only use images if they have a purpose and help the overall design and goal and function of your site. All right, so load times here. All right, so let's look at the 1 megabyte file there. All right, so somebody on a really super slow connection, it's going to take about 150 seconds to download that 1 megabyte file. If we look here, we go to like the DS1, T1 speed on the far right side of the chart there. That's pretty standard. You know, even if you're on a phone, you're switching back and forth between a 3G and 4G connection. It's going to take around 4 or 5 seconds to download that 1 megabyte file. Okay, because you have to remember, not everybody's has a super fast internet connection, even if you do. Those connections vary. Another good practice is to test your pages on multiple web browsers, okay, and even multiple screens and operating systems if you can. So looking at those on IE, the new Microsoft Edge, Chrome, Firefox. If you can look at them on, like I said, multiple OSs like Apple, Safari, and then testing them on mobile screens as well. Just to make sure all the images look good and the resolution looks good. Okay. One thing that we're going to pretty much do with all the pages that we design are use that kind of centered page content. Okay, just because that works really well when we're working with responsive screens. We want that content to kind of always be centered on the page. Navigation-wise, you want your navigation to be easy to use, easy to figure out. Okay, so you want to try to label your links with stuff that makes sense. Okay, things to use, breadcrumbs. Okay, so that's something that you'll be using in the case studies assignments that you'll be working on. So the breadcrumbs are that line of text there. So on this one right above where it says Europe Lake Tour, it says home tours, half-day tours. That's a breadcrumb, okay? And what that kind of means is that you're leaving a trail of where you are within the site. so people can easily get back to places that they'd been to previously. All right, so those are just breadcrumb links that we set up. Okay, so they're just anchor links. Sitemap, you can use search features, things like that. Those are all good to have. Okay, so wireframe. So this is something that you're gonna work on as well. You're gonna, for your final project, you're gonna create a sitemap and you're gonna create some wireframes. A wireframe is a sketch, basically kind of a sketch or a blueprint of how your page is going to be laid out. Okay, so you're showing the main parts of that page, like the header, the navigation, where the content will be, where your footer will be, where the images will be located. Okay, so you're not necessarily putting in the images that you're going to use for the final version. You're just putting in like placeholder shapes of where those images will be placed. For the header, again, you don't have to have the actual logo, things like that. You're just basically creating placeholders for how you think you want your site to be set up. Okay, you want to include enough white space in your page that it's not too cluttered. Okay, so think about how you would include a little bit of white space, maybe above and below your nav, maybe breaking up the site into different sections there. Okay, so like this layout here, it's usable, but it's kind of boring. There's not a lot going on here. No graphics. We're only using one big column. Okay, this one is a little better. Okay, we're dividing it into 3 columns. We have a graphic there. Okay, so it's looking better. It's a little more interesting. But these would probably be the best way to think about how you would do a layout, right? So we have a header. We could either do a vertical or a horizontal navigation. We got a couple other graphics that we're bringing into the page to kind of break it up a little bit, add some of that negative and white space. Right, so this is kind of the goal, to get something more along the lines of this when you're thinking about your site layout. Okay, the Pacific Trails case study, it's going to follow that scheme of the one on the right there for the most part. Okay, and so when you're working on your wireframes, these would be kind of good examples of how you would do that. You can either sketch these by hand, that's fine, or you can use a program like Photoshop or Illustrator, or even like a Microsoft PowerPoint. You could create some wireframes using something like that. So talking about layout, there's a couple different ways to do it. There's that fixed layout where everything is fixed. So this example here, everything's flush left. It doesn't move at all. Even if the browser window size changes, it's still in the same location. Doesn't look that great. Okay. The best way to do that is with that centered content. Okay, like we've been working on with our, ID selectors and the divs that we've been setting up on some of those practice activities, where you have all that content in the center, and it stays in the center even if the browser window changes size. There's also a fluid layout. So this is when you use a fluid layout in kind of conjunction with that centered layout, that usually gives you the best look. So that one on the bottom there, where we have like a header that expands the whole width of the browser, that nav area, see the green stripe there expands all the way, and then that content stays centered there in the middle. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going to be shooting for with a lot of the designs that we're working on. All right, so I need to update the statistics here, but yeah, predicted that by 2015, more users will access websites using mobile devices. yeah, that's not a prediction anymore. That's fact. Everybody is using their phones to get on the web. Okay, so really, the job of web designers and web developers now are designing and developing pages for mobile first. Okay, so we're always thinking about how this is going to look on the mobile screen, right? And so this is where we're going to get into some of this responsive design next week, and actually for the next about three weeks. We're going to be working on designing our pages to work really well with mobile screen sizes. Okay, it used to be we would set up actually separate sites for mobile phones to where somebody would have to type in a separate URL, like this example here for the White House Gov. You would, or even like K-State, we used to have a m.ksu.edu site that was for mobile. We don't do that anymore just because by using CSS and some of these responsive design techniques, we can code it once on the page, and then it works no matter what kind of screen size you're using. Okay, that's the best way to do it, the most optimal way to do it, and that's how we teach that now. Okay, but you do have to think about that screen size when you're designing it. Okay, so you don't want to have multiple columns on the mobile screen. Okay, like if you start out with a 3-column design on the desktop, we're going to make that responsive to where it goes down to just a single column on the phone. Okay, optimizing images for the mobile as well, so those are viewable, and you know, avoiding some of that non-essential content. All right, yeah, so this is just some more websites you can check out on responsive web design. Okay, we're going to start in on this in chapter 6 and 7 next week. All right, that is it. So again, I'll post these slides in PDF format on Canvas. Okay, everything on the quizzes should be covered in that, and then as well in the book. So read through the chapter 5 in the book, and then get those quizzes done. In the meantime, if you have any questions on the case studies or anything from chapter 4, let me know. I think I have, yeah, I still got to get that Zoom tutorial that I did on Monday uploaded into Canvas, so I'll get that done today. But that should do it. All right. Okay. Have a great day. And on Friday, I don't plan to do any Zoom or anything, so it'll just be a work day. So if you have questions, just shoot me an email, or I'll actually be on campus as well, so you can always swing by my office. Okay. All right. See you everybody later. Bye.
Bye.